Yet we've got 4.1 million, and that's increasing, children living in poverty. We've got 1.9 million elderly people living in poverty. We've got 50,000 elderly people die on an annual basis in a country which is the 5th richest economy in the world. You know, we should be ashamed of the situation, and we've got to address the poverty in this country.
Hi, I'm Josh Foster, and next to me is Jobe Doherty. Joining us tonight is the former chair of the Labour Party, former Labour Party National Campaign Coordinator, former Shadow Minister for Trade Unions, Shadow Minister for the Cabinet Office, current Labour MP, member of the Socialist Campaign Group, Mr Ian Lavery MP. Hi Ian, welcome to Progressive Pod. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, and thanks to you and your team for inviting us on for, I think, what was described as a light-hearted chat.
Yeah,
you don't get many light-hearted chats in the business anymore. It's all like much more serious than that. So, hey, listen, I'm looking forward to a light-hearted chat, but having a good discussion about politics as they stand at this moment in time, because there's lots to discuss, isn't there, really?
Good, great. So we're going to get to Jobe for the first question.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to think we're a lot more light-hearted than most of the journalists out there anyway, so we're hoping to change the scene. So, first question, what Labour policy, throughout all of Labour history, do you think has been the biggest assets to Britain?
Well, I think that's probably very simple, to be honest with you. And I think that the most important policy that we have had, and that was with Jeremy Corbyn in 2017 and 2019, was with regard to nationalisation. We promised that we would renationalise the companies, or many of the companies that the Conservatives have privatised over the years, and milked dry, and bled the consumer dry, bled individuals dry, net huge profits, worsened services. And I think a huge programme on nationalisation, which Jeremy promised we would do, with Royal Mail, water, the railways, to name but three of the most important ones. I always used to campaign for the renationalisation of the coal industry, being from the coal industry, from a coal community, leaving school without many qualifications, and working 7 miles under the North Sea as a coal miner. That's my trade. So I used to always scream about the renationalisation of the coal industry. So I think nationalisation, for the simple reason, and you look at even the NHS, which has been partly privatised, like lots of it's been privatised covertly. But I mean, you cannot control something you don't own. And that's why I think as a nation, we need to be looking at ways and means renationalisation. I think the party's stance on nationalisation under Jeremy was absolutely spot on. And I would have probably wanted to go a little bit further than that. I think we should have been looking to nationalise the banks and the financial institutions, for example, because there's just quite simply rip individuals off. Many people who haven't really got any money behind them. And as I say, you cannot control what you don't own. So the long-winded answer is the thread that runs through nationalisation and everything that it brings to communities, and the way in which we can employ people, the way in which we can ensure that things work in the best interest of the people, instead of the top few, instead of shareholders, dividend holders, in favour of the people of the country. And I think that's probably the best answer.
I think you make a very good point there, actually, because I feel like a lot of people agree with the principle of companies being run for the people rather than for private profit. And because of that simple reason at the heart of nationalisation, don't you think that the argument for it, especially by the Tories, has been a bit strawmanned, a bit gaslighted?
Well, I think it has. But I must say that, I think we haven't been particularly forceful either, particularly after 2019. I think we haven't got many policies that I think I could recite to you. Certainly not many policies which I think that would be easily explained on the doorstep, and it would encourage people, gives people some hope, some aspirations. That's what we want. That's what we want. We want policies that people will be absolutely chuffed to bits with, delighted with. People can say, that'll change my life. That'll change the life of my kids. That'll change my life. It'll change the life of the community. It'll enhance and enrich everything we stand for. That's why we need a raft of policies. I was criticised, and I get criticised quite often, by the way, when I was chairman of the party and national campaign coordinator, for the policies we reeled out in 2017 to 2019. Too many policies were promised too much. We had too much to offer. I'll never, ever apologise for that. I'll never apologise for wanting to make life better for lots of people who, quite frankly, have got a shit life and have got a shit existence. It's the job of people who are elected like me to get in the Houses of Parliament and do everything we can to look at the injustices, look at the inequalities in society and put them right. That's why we need these policies. We seem to have lost it considerably since 2019. The fact that we were getting huge crowds listening to what the left were having to say. We get 15 and 16,000 to see GSC, man. Because of the policies we actually had. And many apologies for that. I really do not.
But as you shouldn't, to be fair, because I can see the passion you're on about when you talk about, eradicating the injustices. And you touched on earlier about you being a miner. Now, at a time when the country was calling out for miners, you decided to get an apprenticeship in the field. Now, can you explain what life was like as a miner in the 80s under a Thatcher government, and whether that sort of moulded your political ideology for the future?
Well, to be honest, I left school without any real good qualification. I didn't like school. I didn't like authority that much. I probably still haven't changed that much. And like many people in communities like mine, coal mining communities, we got a job at the pit. I got offered a job at the pit where my father worked. I got offered a job because my father got us a job, and that's what happened in the coalfield communities. If your families worked there, you had a great chance to get a job in the pit. Anyway, so I got a job at the pit, and then more or less straight away, I was offered like a management apprentice, which was, like a 5-year apprenticeship. It wasn't like an apprenticeship, which you get at this moment of time where like a 6-month thing, and then you finish. This was an indentured apprenticeship, further education, and I took it with both hands. I thought it was a fantastic opportunity, and just as I was getting on with my apprenticeship, that was like in the workplace at college, the miners' strike came, and the miners' strike is something which developed me as a character, whether people like it or dislike it. The way I am, my character. But there was a miners' strike, and what I saw at first hand from being a young lad, the politics during the miners' strike was unbelievable, and basically it was who was right and who was wrong. the forces against you, the friendship, the solidarity, the comradeship, fighting against the state, not realizing ever how powerful and how much the likes of a government might dislike communities, and what, how and why they might wish to destroy the communities in which you live and destroy everything that had been built over our centuries. So the miners' strike was the defining moment for me, a year-long strike. And it like highlighted to me, basically, it was an education you couldn't buy at the finest university, the University of Life, everything that went on during a miners' strike. It was unreal. It shaped and molded my character and my vision. Am I a socialist? I am a socialist. I've been labelled a socialist. If you're on the left, you get labelled a socialist. You get labelled a communist. You get all these labels. One thing I'll just be proud to say is that I support the trade unions. I was on strike as a young lad. I've probably been on strike, by the way, more than every single person in the Commons added together. So, I'll take that as a great credit. My strike was fantastic. You couldn't learn it at a university. You couldn't learn it anywhere. It was just, from your family, on the picket line, in the industry. It was just amazing.
Kind of jealous.
Yeah. You captured that exactly. I was as well. But, some people say, and I say this, I think that the working classes are some of the most intelligent people you can ever come across. You know what I mean? They're witty, they're funny, they've got so much life experience, and there's so much to learn if you're willing to listen. So, I mean, would you change anything if you could go back to that miners' strike? Because you seem very, very, very passionate about it. And I feel like some people kind of get the wrong idea about the strike, that it was all this violence. And yes, there was violence, but it was also a noble cause. Would you have changed anything?
I would have tried to change the outcome so that we actually won. Jobe, you mentioned some of the most intelligent people are working class people. Seriously, and I kid you not, some of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life are people who worked underground, who didn't have a single qualification. These individuals knew politics inside out. They weren't well read. They didn't read Marx. They didn't read anything in particular. These are individuals who knew the values of community spirit, knew the values of solidarity, knew that you needed to help people at the time, the worst times, and knew about unity as strength, knew about educate, agitate, all of these, and educate, all of these sort of things. Some of the people I met, and I kid you not, were the most intelligent people you would ever care to meet in your life.
How did it feel personally for you by going from a hardworking miner to being elected to the National Union of Mine Workers Committee, and then later on becoming Shadow Minister for Trade Unions? Like, what did that feel for you personally, and what did the role entail?
Well, I'm a trade unionist first and foremost, and I've already told you about, my feelings, or some of my feelings with regard to the miners' strike, and I think the miners' strike for me, and I'll just say this, I was on strike in a family of the 7. There was me, me 4 brothers, me mother and father, me father and 3 brothers and me were on strike, and the miners' strike obviously is a really personal to me as well as anything else. My father was a great union man. I never ever took him an official position in the union, but he's one of these people who I mentioned before, who, if you listen to, were extremely wise individuals, without having a PhD, extremely wise. So the miners' strike and trade unionism for me is just ever so important. So that I think I've lost the thread of what you asked us, Joshua. Do you want to just run that past as again? I'm probably getting a little bit too emotional.
No problem. So, how did it feel for you? Being a hardworking miner, getting elected to the National Coal Workers Miners Union Thinking Committee, and then becoming shadow minister for trade unions? Like, what did it feel for you, and also what did the role entail?
Well, you know, the being elected at a young age to an NUM branch, being elected as an official, you know, at 20 years of age was really something else. Particularly a big branch like mine, the pit I worked at was, you know, there was like 2,500 people worked there. And believe me, to get elected, you had to be, you know, you had to be known, you had to be trusted, you had to earn that respect. That's how you got the votes. And I initially got elected onto the committee at the branch, and then I got elected onto being what was a really important role, which not many people hear about, was called the compensation secretary. And the compensation secretary basically used to do, you know, anybody had an accident in the pit, whether it's a black fingernail, a broken leg, or a broken neck, or indeed, sadly, a fatality, the compensation secretary would be the man at the pit who would deal with the family, deal with the individuals, and try and, with the legal advisors, ensure that the most money could be achieved in terms of compensation. And that's where I like cut my teeth, you know, in the compensation and in the compensation department. And it was a really, really a big eye opener for me. And away from that, I became the secretary, and then I eventually was elected to the National Executive Committee of the NUM, which was unbelievable. The NUM, the most powerful union in the world. And I remember my first day, my first meeting I ever went to. I went in and I was sitting next to Dennis Skinner. Dennis Skinner was the parliamentary rep on the NEC at that time. Dennis is somebody who I saw during the miners' strike, you know, different rallies, absolutely phenomenal in every way. And to sit and to think, and I'm sitting at this big committee room, you know, with Scargill at the top of the table, some of the massive kickers throughout the whole of the UK, sitting next to Dennis Skinner, and I'm thinking, crikey, you know, what am I going to say here? My knees were knocking, my voice, I couldn't speak. I just couldn't believe that I thought I'd met it in life. Mind, I thought probably being elected onto the branch committee was something, you know, I had met it in life as well. So, you know, and then, you know, then I became the president of the National Union of Mine Workers when Arthur Scargill retired. I was Arthur Scargill's like left-hand man for 10 years. And I've got to say, Arthur Scargill is definitely the best trade union leader I've ever seen and witnessed. And there's some fantastic ones, even, you know, there's some fantastic ones around at this moment in time. But Arthur was something different. And I was his left-hand man. And when he decided to retire, I was nominated unopposed to take over from him. I was the president of the union from 2002 to 2010, and then became an MP. You know, when I became an MP, I never ever I wasn't bothered about becoming an MP, by the way. This wasn't like a vocation in life, thinking and dreaming every time I woke up in the morning that I needed to be in the House of Commons and Parliament. I wanted to be an MP, one of these fantastic figures. I wasn't particularly interested in being an MP. It's just the way the dice rolled at that particular point in time, with the MP in my constituency decided to stand down, and the CLP rallied round me and said, you know, we would really want you to stand. And I became an MP, and I didn't, under any circumstances, have any ambitions to be party chair, a shadow minister, a minister. I didn't have any ambitions to do any of that. But as I say, it's where you are at a particular point in time. And then becoming, you know, I remember when Jeremy asked us in and asked us if I would take up the role as the shadow minister for the trade unions, and it was just, again, just fantastic. I wasn't like shadow minister for trade unions for too long. I got like Well, I was asked if I would do something else. I think I did the cabinet. I did lots of things. And I'm just thinking a young lad like me, well, I'm not young, no, but, you know, looking back, you know, from where I come back, you know, from like rough and tough beginnings, you know, council house. We lived in poverty when we were kids. We lived in poverty. We had fantastic parents. We didn't have anything. We didn't have two halfpennies to rub together. And I've always thought how lucky I've been to be able to get and be able to do what I've done, particularly as one of Jeremy Corbyn's 5-star generals, as I like to put it. And it's just been an amazing, amazing journey for me. You know, and I thank the people, because it's down to other people. Every job I've had since being around about 20 years of age has been elected positions. And if I lost those positions, I lost my job. So, you know, you've got to be on the mark. You've got to be pushing forward. You've got to be loud. You've got to be seen. You've got to be successful in many ways. And when I say successful, you can often find success in defeat, because as long as you're trying and fighting, you cannot win everything. But as long as you're seen and you are actively fighting for what you think's right, for justice that I mentioned before, inequalities, that makes a difference. And you've got to be seen to be doing that. So it was brilliant, you know, Joshua, it was brilliant. And I still look back yet, despite the fact that I'm a backbencher, I'm probably likely to end my days on the backbenches, which is fantastic anyway, by the way, because I can do lots of things from the backbenches, and support in lots of different causes, and that's what I've been doing since Keir kicked us out of the position of party chair.
Oh, lovely. That was brilliant. I'll ask my next question. I feel like you'll have a very astute look on this, really, given the state of politics today. Do you think it is fair now, especially at this point in history, to say that neoliberalism is more of a dying ideology, with even countries like the US having presidents now that don't seem to conform to the natural order that used to be?
Oh, I agree with that, but you know, we've got to keep fighting. By the way, because you know, neoliberalism will not die unless we're kicking it to touch. And we, as I used to describe it, you've got to keep them on the ground. You've got to keep your foot on their neck, and keep it there. We never ever be complacent. We've got a duty to ensure that we try to change society for the better of everybody. And when you see other countries changing, I'm not sure they're changing too much. I mean, one thing that we have seen in this country change is the election of Boris Johnson, and then what we saw in America, which was absolutely horrendous, was the election of that fella Trump. Goodness me! I mean, I did see a few years ago. Well, I had a speech I made that says we're heading for the two blonde bombshells. We're going to have Johnson and we're going to have Trump. And people were like laughing, and I said, I'm not joking. And it actually came true. And what a horrific period of time we've actually had in international politics, and of course with the way in which Boris Johnson runs this country is absolutely, it's frightening in the extreme. And what's more frightening is it's a lot of hard-working, ordinary people who voted for the Conservative Party in constituencies like mine, not because they believed in the Conservative Party, but it was about Brexit. It was about Boris Johnson. We'll get it done. We'll get it done. So we've been through a torrid time, and we've got Johnson here for quite some time, and the Labour left, regardless of it, the Labour left. We've always had to fight for what we've achieved. Once we've achieved something, we've had to fight to retain and maintain it. Once we've done that, to progress, we've got to fight even harder. In that process, you quite often get kicked all over the place. And as that wonderful song is, the good get tough, the tough get good. And you've got to get up and you've got to shake yourself down. You've got to keep fighting. You know, one issue I've got is people who are like, who left the party because Jeremy is no longer leader. Jeremy Corbyn is one of my best friends, great supporters of each other. But the left didn't begin in 2015. The socialist struggle didn't begin in 2015. You know, what we walk on the shoulders of giants, people on the left from centuries ago, and turning our back on the fight now is not the right thing to do. I mean, I can understand some people, I can understand people leaving the party, but the excuse shouldn't be because Jeremy, anything to do with my good comrade Jeremy. We've got to keep fighting, and we've got to keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, because there's too many people need what we have promised to try and achieve from the left, from the socialist perspective. Too many people need that. And as I say, it's never been easy. I don't think I've ever been in the majority in anything in my life, but it doesn't mean to say I've been wrong. And I keep saying that to people. It's quite, you know, just because you're in the minority doesn't mean to say you're wrong. And we've got to keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. You know, when you're in the trenches, when you are fighting, when you're taking the fight to the enemy, you don't want to be seeing some of your soldiers jumping up with the trenches, back over and running away, but still telling you where you're going wrong and still screaming and telling you what you should be doing. And that's what I feel like, you know, when we had the huge bust up, you know, when Jeremy sadly lost in 2019 at the election, it did like really upset me to see lots of good, decent socialists leave the party, because, you know, if we're ever to change the party, we're going to need them back in the party. But, you know, you shouldn't give up the fight. I've been a member through the Blair years, and there's not a morning I didn't wake up and think, goodness me, why am I still in this party? But the you know, the overarching thought is to try and make a different life for lots of people out there who are in desperate need. So, you know, I might, you know, I have been criticised for saying that, but I firmly believe it. We need as many people in the party. It's not called the struggle for nothing, lads.
Yeah.
It really isn't. It's not called the struggle because it's easy. It's called the struggle because it's a bloody struggle. It really is. But, you know, as I say, we look back at when we walk on the shoulders of giants, look back as far back as the Tulpuddle Martyrs all those years ago, the introduction of trade unionism. And to think that some people just think socialism, the left wing, began only 5 or 6 years ago, and they're not having any of it because we haven't won anything, quite frankly, is astonishing.
Brilliant.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like, it was a brilliant answer to my question, by the way, and I've got no follow-ups on that. That was fantastic.
Perfect. So you speak about socialists not leaving the party. We've got to stick and fight and carry on with the struggle. What 3 policies should Keir Starmer take with him into the 2024 general election?
That's a really good question. I've already mentioned the issues. What I would say is that had we have won the election in 2019 on the policies we had, and you can look at a raft of different policies, like the increase in investment in the NHS and in social care. You know, 81% of the public, 81% of the public really like that policy. Raising the minimum wage. We said in the election we wanted to raise it to £10 an hour. 75% of the electorate liked that policy. Tax rises for people making above 80 grand a year. Great popular policy. The introduction and begin a new program of house building, of social housing. I think we said we were going to build 150,000 social houses per year. The green industrial revolution, you know, climate change. This is really important, and I think it's gradually coming to the top of the agenda, the green industrial revolution, and where we go with that. Climate change, we must tackle climate change. Education for life from the cradle to grave, and it should be a free education. It shouldn't be just, again, for people who've got money in their backside pockets. Education is very important, but it should be free for everyone. And I think the policy which was scorned upon as communism was the John McDonnell's great idea about free broadband right across the communities. Can you imagine what difference that would have made during this pandemic, and how the Tories are now saying what a great idea was? By the way, these are the ideas we had in 2019. And most of the policies we had are now like being looked at very closely by the Tories. So what three would be the most important? You could take it from, workers' rights, like I mentioned, NHS, very important, climate change. They might be the top three, but we couldn't discount, decent social housing on a massive scale. I haven't even mentioned the fact that we need to make sure that people have got a roof over their heads, and we've got a fantastic social security system where people can actually live in existence instead of begging and being sanctioned. All of this, there's lots of things. We need bold economic policies which will change people's lives. That's what we've got to head towards. As I say, health, climate change, jobs, and mass employment. That would be probably a long-winded three, but I would say that we've got to educate, agitate, and organise to make sure that we get more than those three.
Definitely.
Probably the number of the policies which I've just mentioned, which I think all have got probably of equal importance in different degrees.
Brilliant. I want to touch on something you said there, which leads very nicely into my next question. And it's the educate aspect of it. I mean, socialism throughout its history has kind of been misrepresented on purpose. It's been slandered, it's been torn apart. And I feel like, especially since the Red Scare, for some people, it's become a very dirty word. So as a party, and probably as a society too, what can Labour do to kind of redress the balance and the misconceptions about how socialism is perceived?
Well, listen, socialism will always be seen as a dirty word. I'm not bothered with, I'm not bothered with being called a socialist. I'm not bothered with called a communist. I'm not bothered what anybody says and labels me with. In fact, on occasions, depending who's making the comments, it makes you quite proud, and you say, well, that's a badge of honour if it's coming from people like that. So, being called a socialist, it is a label, I mean, it's what is a socialist? That's the question. What is a socialist? There's difference, there's a difference in how people see themselves as socialists as well. And you've got working class, this is only my view, working class industrial socialists who've worked in industry and who have took industrial action, who have been in in police cells because of the action on the picket line. People who put up and not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. You've got other people who haven't done that. You've got a lot of people who think that because they've read Marx that they're ultra socialists, and people who've got accents like mine haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. And you've got middle class socialists. You've got people in the lower upper classes who class themselves as socialists. You've got lots of other people. What it is, you've got a whole raft of people, who are actually, because of the way they think and because of the way they act and they run their lives, are actually socialists, but would never ever classify themselves as socialists. You've got hundreds of thousands of people in this country community organisers, community champs, people who campaign in the local area. Maybe not even be party members of any description, but they're actually fantastic socialists because of the way they conduct their lives and the way that they put other people before them, the way that they look to enhance and enrich the lives and empower the lives of other people. So socialism, it's great to be classified as a socialist. It's actually what people mean when they call you a socialist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm stacking my phone currently on, funnily enough, the book by Peter Kropotkin, The Conquest of Bread, which is obviously very famous socialist text, but not everyone has to be, clued up on theory to be a socialist or everything. I mean, I think most people, if you were to go up to them into the street and ask what their values are, and they would match up very, very well with socialism. And it, because it's been slandered, most people would stay away from the word. But I think it's a hell of a lot more common than people actually think it is. I mean, it's kind of an innate human kind of appeal, I think, to share and to care for others and to see the bigger picture. I mean, really, boiled down to its simplest parts, that's all socialism really is, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the very point I make. And forgive us for like saying you don't have to read Marx or Engels or to be a socialist. I'm not being critical of anybody who has and who does. I mean, I actually have. I'm not sure if I understood all of it, by the way, and I'm being perfectly honest. But I know by the actions, and I know by the way in which I've run my life, and I've read the Ragged Trousered Philanthropist, and that's my favourite book. Does that make us a socialist? No, what makes me a socialist is actually the way I try to help people, the way in which I understand the values of life and how I try to ensure that other people benefit from today's society, and not just those at the very top, but those who are struggling in their lifetime in communities like mine.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah. Are you, Josh?
So, you've just been talking about exactly this leads right on to my next question. What is your brand of socialism, and who is your favourite socialist thinker, if you have one?
My brand of socialism, I think I've already just like screamed it at the laptop. My brand of socialism is what I classify as industrial socialism. It's about workplace socialism, community socialism. It's about organising in the workplace. It's about organising in the communities together, collectively. Collectivism. That's that's how I would describe myself. An industrial. I call myself an industrial lefty. As I say, I don't normally describe myself as a socialist. I don't know, for whatever reason. I'm a lefty, and I think what the press says, I'm a hard lefty. Well, I mean, they might be right, by the way, but that's just the way people label different people. But I think that's the way I would describe myself, Joshua. My favourite lefty thinker. I'm not sure if I would, I would put one above the other.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm not an avid reader of left and socialist thinking. I would prefer to read, like other stuff. I think Joshua, I know what I need to know about being a socialist. And I don't really need. I'm not being like big-headed here or anything like that. I just don't think I need to read up on people's thinkings about being a socialist. I think I know what it is.
Yeah.
So, does that make any sense?
Yeah, I'm probably the same. Yeah.
I think I might be coming on as like having a real go at lots of young lefties at university who spend their time with 6 books in their arms like that, and they go to bed at 5 o'clock at night and read Marxist theory. I promise you, I'm not. If that's what people want to do, I'm all for that. By the way, I was lucky enough, you see, and we've already discussed it. I was lucky enough, or we might say unlucky enough, to be part of one of the biggest industrial disputes we've ever seen in this country, you know, and live through it and learn a living history of socialism. I was lucky that way, which means in many ways, you know, other people haven't had that experience and might wish to, you know, well, spend the academic career learning about the virtues of socialism.
I mean, I'm guilty as charged on the books. I've probably got too many for my for my own good. But my next question actually kind of appeals to the more basic side of. Hey, that's fantastic! I love how you just had that on standby to pull out. That's fantastic.
That's the Bible, and of course it's signed by Jeremy as well. So
yeah.
treasure that. But I was going to say, yeah. So thinking about more widely as a country, and obviously, as much as Harold Wilson, I think, was right in saying the Labour Party is a moral crusade, it's also a party that wants to win. So I want to ask you a question. Do you think the brand of progressive patriotism is a way to unite kind of Labour's lost target voters and harmonise with our younger, more core supporters? Progressive patriotism, as I'm sure you can see.
Well, that is a real good question, you know. I'm not sure. I mean, I've got a Unite flag behind me. I'm not sure if I would ever put a Union Jack behind us just to impress people. I'm patriotic, you know. I really am. I love this country, and I just think, like what I exactly said to you when I saw your flag, the patriotism comes in many different forms, and I've got to say I'm not terribly. I mean, I'm hoping that England win on there. I mean, I'm a big football supporter. I'm absolutely desperate for England to win on Sunday, but I'm not into this singing the national anthem. I'm not into, like, you know, during the match or even before the match. I don't see that as patriotic. I'll tell you what I think is patriotic, is looking after people in this country, looking after people across the globe, keeping the 0.7% GDP to pay for the world's poorest people. That's being patriotic. I'm English. Look at what we're doing for the rest of the world. We're rich. We can afford it. Look after people. Try and ensure that people aren't suffering and dying across the world. That's being patriotic. I'm not sure if being patriotic is like invading Iraq or invading Afghanistan, and then showing off our tanks and our army and our armed forces. And when the armed forces come back, we let them suffer on the streets and never look after them with all the conditions, etc., that they might be suffering. So patriotism is important. Patriotism is looking after people when they're poorly, investing in the NHS, investing in people, looking after people, making sure that we pay our taxes, invest in the best interests of other. That's patriotism. Education, making sure that my kids and your kids of the future. I hope you haven't got any kids yet, by the way, you two. But never mind, that's not my business. Look, making sure that they're going to have a brighter future in this wonderful country of ours and across. That's patriotism. Just putting I nearly swore there, putting a Union Jack on a photograph at either side of you when you're speaking, and wearing a sharper suit, it doesn't mean you're patriotic. And you know, we've got to get past that. We really have got to get past this, because it's about nationalism. You know, really, that's the thing behind all of this. It's about nationalism, and it's about the National Tory Party and others, of course, outside of the Tory party. We cannot be sucked into that type of politics, and nor should we be. We should be proud of our identity, be proud to be British, proud to be English, Welsh, Irish, Scottish, European, and we've got to be, we've got to, explain to people why we're so proud. And I think that's important. It really, really is.
Yeah, it's like you said. Sorry, carry on.
It brings into play, it brings into play the culture wars.
Yeah.
And this is one of the massive issues that Boris Johnson plays on. How can you have constituencies like Blythe Valley, which is the next constituency to mine, voting for a Tory, when indeed the people in Blythe Valley have high levels of poverty, high levels of child poverty, huge levels of benefit take-up, poor housing stock, and everything that Boris Johnson does is against every one of them. But they still vote for Johnson. That is a conundrum. It's about nationalism. It's about one thing. We'll never even mention Brexit once, but a lot of that's to do with this nationalism about we're British, three lions, where we can take on the world and we can take back our borders. We can make our own decisions, and that's a really volatile sort of situation we're in at this moment in time, I'm afraid.
Exactly. It's like when you mention, you can be proud of a flag or proud of your country, but it's what the country represents. If that country is, actively trying to decrease homelessness, trying to decrease poverty, increase the National Health Service, provide social care free at the point of use, increase minimum wage, improve workers' rights, we can get behind that. We can be proud of the flag or the country because it's actively helping its citizens and giving them a better life. But I'm not going to fall for Boris Johnson's plastic patriotism, where he puts a flag up and he pretends he's, the god of Britain, but it's like, that doesn't work. It's culture wars. He does it for a reason.
I mean, they're brilliant at it, They really are brilliant at these culture wars. We've got to get better at seeing how we tackle these and not falling into these culture wars every opportunity that it arises. But we live in difficult times with that nationalism. Brexit is the thing that's really divided not just the Labour Party but the country as a whole. And just because certain people say, right, Brexit's finished, we'll move away from it, doesn't mean to say that it is, because too many people were left feeling betrayed at the fact that they had voted to leave, regardless whether they were right or whether they were wrong. If you have a referendum, you really need, if you have a ballot, you really need to stick by the results. And a lot of people feel betrayed. A lot of people feel betrayed by Keir, because the truth behind Keir was the architect of a move towards the second referendum, and people were terribly fed up with that. People in my constituency were terribly fed up with that. That's how we lost, 48 out of 52 Redwall seats, which me and Trickett both predicted in one of the papers we've done. I think the no holding back team we have. We lost the seats because, and I warned them and warned them. I shouted and screamed and swore at the shadow cabinet. I got admonished by Jeremy for having a good Keir. The Remainers, and I've got no problem with people who supported Remain. I've got no problem with any, but we need to be constructive. We needed to be honest with each other, and I just think Brexit destroyed the country, and the country is still on its knees because of Brexit, and certainly it's had a huge impact on the Labour Party.
Brexit kind of it certainly has become the modern day dividing line of politics, and at a time like this where COVID has come through as well, one thing we've all been able to unite behind, as you know, as a football fan, is the England team at the minute, and they're doing so tremendously well. And my last question is kind of a bit silly, really, but there's no problem with a silly question. On Sunday, is it coming home?
I hate that saying, you know. I think, was it, who was it?
It was
Schmeichel. It was Schmeichel who was asked that question. Kasper Schmeichel was asked the question, is it coming home? And he says, well, has it ever been home? Have you ever won it? And I thought that was great because, you know, we haven't won it.
Yeah.
We're really, you know, we haven't won the European Championships ever. So why are we talking about coming home as if it's like been here before? It hasn't. And this is sort of like chat that we are really here. I love football, by the way. I mean, I've been a season ticket holder at Newcastle for 40 years, and I love football. I haven't been a great supporter of England. I haven't like followed England home and away. I've been to a few England games, but isn't anybody in this country wants England to win more than what I do? But you know, the home of football, we've again got to put it in their context, haven't we? Like even talking about having is there a petition being set up to have a day off on Monday for a win?
Oh, yeah.
And it's got more than 100,000. There's more important things than winning the Euros where people should have a day off work. You know, that's a long-winded answer there, Joe. But I think it's going to be a very difficult game. And by the way, you know, I like a flutter on the football. You know, I'm one of the MPs who admits like it a bet. It's my culture. It's where I come from. You know, and I normally like put a bet on. You know, like corners, cards, and goal scorers. You know, like a combination bet on. And I haven't really done that well through the championship. But haven't they done really well? And it's fantastic to see all those people who, on the media, who were criticising the likes of Sterling only like a couple of years ago, criticising and the main people on the England team who haven't got the same colour skin as what the three of us have. And now the superheroes. And then it's great to see, I think, I'm right in saying, because Twitter's a wonderful thing, but it's not always terribly accurate.
Yeah.
There's only, I think, only 3 people in the team who haven't got like a multi-international type family. You know, like the mom or the dad are from a different nation. So, you know, it's great when people start to realise that we are best together. We are better as colleagues, comrades, friends, citizens. You know, regardless of the colour of our skin, regardless of where we come from on this earth, we're better together in that respect. So, fantastic. Answer, I'm going to say we'll win 2-1.
Fantastic.
Good shout, that. But my last question, thank you for having us all, for talking with us today. But
yeah,
what is your message? You've got one option to speak to Keir Starmer. How do we recapture the Red Wall? What do you say to him?
United we stand, divided we fall. That's the message I would give to Keir. And what I mean by that, quite simply, is we cannot win anything unless we're a united party. We cannot win anything if we experience the likes of Jeremy Corbyn still hasn't got the whip back, and you know the likes of Trevor Phillips was given the whip back quite quietly this week, provoking the left. We cannot win anything, and it's a well-known fact that to win elections, we've got to have a coalition of the working class, the left, and of course the right wing as well. We've got to have a collective to win anything as a Labour Party. And I think Keir's got to look at the way in which things have developed from him being, you know, like elected. He had a 10-point pledge plan. I think he would do a lot worse to revert back to that. I look to try and unite the party, because there's been a lot of bridges burned. It'll be very difficult, by the way, but the message would be reunite the party and come up with the policies which were broadly mentioned in 17 and 19 and try and get that buzz back in the communities. Because parties, like individuals, parties haven't got the right to exist. They really haven't got this divine right to be a political party. You've got to stand for something. You've got to have a purpose. And, looking back to, the early parts of the last century when the Labour Party was formed, we still stand, or we should still stand, for the same values, the same purposes, the same reasons. And we can only win it if we work together, within the broad church of the Labour Party. So unity is strength. United we stand, divided we fall.
Do you think that the Labour Party and Keir Starmer will ever be united?
I'm not too sure on that, because I believe that, let me tell you, Keir Starmer is a very decent man.
Yeah.
I've had, lots of disagreements with Keir Starmer, and I wouldn't say that we've ever fallen out. We've been able to constructively discuss some very difficult issues, in the main Brexit. But I'm not sure what at all has went wrong. I don't think Keir's ever been a left winger. I think his 10-point plan was something which people hung their hat on and thought he might be, the safe pair of hands. And if he was meant to uniting the party was one of those points, then I think a lot of people thought they could live with Keir. But really, to be polite, he's ignored his 10-point plan. And then I think people have got every right to say that he's ignored the left. In fact, not ignored the left, he's absolutely hammered the left into the ground. Now, whether or not people on the left, if an olive branch was handed out, whether or not people would automatically just think, all right, okay, we'll draw a line under what's happened in the first 14 or 15 months of Keir's leadership. I'm not sure. I think a lot of people really feel hurt by what's happened within the party, and I think you've got to earn trust. I think there's a huge lack of trust because of the promises he made and the promises that he broke. So we'll wait and see. But one thing's more important: we need a united party. We need lots of fantastic policies. We need to be a party that reflects the people who we represent. We need community organising. We need more young people in the Commons. We need more disabled people in the Commons. We need more working people in the Commons. We need more key workers in the Commons. We need more people, ethnically diverse individuals in the Commons, and to make the decisions that other people are making who haven't really got much of a clue. So we need to reflect the society and the communities in which what we proudly represent. And as I say, unity is strength. United we stand, divided we fall.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Ian. Thanks for joining us tonight. That's everything for me. Jobe, do you want to finish it off? Or
well, I'll tell you what, I hope this was the friendly chat you were promised. I hope it hasn't been too hard on you. I can tell you now, even before talking to Josh afterwards, we've certainly enjoyed this. Love the answers that you gave to my questions and Josh's as well. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and hear your thoughts.
Well, listen, thanks very much, Josh. Thanks, Jobe. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Keep up the fight, keep up the battle, and remember to educate, agitate, and organise. And never, never, ever give in. I'll just say this. Remember, say 8 years ago, and somebody had to say to me, Jeremy Corbyn will be the leader of the Labour Party one day, I would have laughed them out of existence. And I would have said there's 650 MPs, 650, number 650 will be Jeremy Corbyn. Look how things can change. You know, it was Lenin who famously said, "Nothing happens in decades happens in weeks." And that's the way politics is. Never give up, because something always is around the corner. And, you know, events, dear boys, events. And that's what transforms society. So, you know, keep in there. Thanks for the interview. And I've really enjoyed it. It wasn't hard at all. It was very well crafted, good crack, and there should be more of this. So good luck. I wish you both all the very best. I wish the Young Socialists solidarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Take
you.
care of yourself.